Welcome to Duck Season Somewhere podcast. This episode is brought to you by the following sponsors. For 365 days a year, it's duck season somewhere at Ramsey Russell's GetDucks.com. The world of duck hunting is way bigger than our backyard. The very best duck hunts in Argentina and Mexico are only the beginning. We specialize exclusively in 6 continents worth of proven waterfowl hunting adventures. Whether you're looking for a unicorn species or a fun trigger pulling vacation of epic proportion, we've got the right hunt dialed in. Real duck hunts and authentic experiences for serious duck hunters. As a genuine American duck hunter myself, I know the difference. Founded in 2003, GetDucks.com is not just what we do, it's all we do. I've been there personally many times. Our reputation speaks for itself. Anita and I are personally available to assist before, during, and after your trip because you deserve nothing less. Looking for something closer to home? The next great hunt is closer than you think. Contact proven operators throughout the U.S. and Canada at our U.S. hunt list. Explore worldwide duck hunting at GetDucks.com. All package details, photos, videos, stories, and thousands of client testimonials right there at your fingertips. GetDucks.com. Ball Shotshells copper-plated bismuth tin alloy is the good old days again. Steel shots come a long way in the past 30 years, but will never, ever be like good old-fashioned lead. No way. Say goodbye to all the gimmicky, high recoil, compensation, science, and marketing hype, and hello to superior performance. Know your pattern, take ethical shots, make clean kills. That is the boss way. The good old days are now. It really is duck season somewhere for 365 days per year. Duck season somewhere takes me year-round to worldwide destinations where I visit with the most interesting people. I'm your host, Ramsey Russell. Join me here to listen to those conversations.
Hey, y'all, you cool cats and kittens. Or is it more like, hey, y'all, you blankety blanks. Man, it seems like a lifetime ago I watched Tiger King when this COVID stuff got started, and I don't know if that's good or bad that I watched that show, but look, I am on the line with Ontario today. Today's guest is Ryan Reynolds of Apex Waterfowling right there in the Ottawa Valley. Ryan, how are you today?
I am good today. Sun's shining. It's a nice day here for a change, and I'm doing fantastic. I can't complain at this point.
Well, here we are, late April. What is the weather like in Ontario? I'm way down here in the deep south Mississippi. You're way up there in Ontario. What right now today we're say 75 degrees. What are y'all looking like up there?
Yeah, we're not there. That's for sure. I mean, it's nice. We're nice enough here. Let's put it this way: it's we're 5 days into our spring turkey season here, so we're right around the 32 mark at daybreak, sitting up against a tree listening to some thunder chickens, and then the afternoons we're getting up to mid 50s right now type deal. So that kind of weather that makes you want to get outside, but you still need to wear a sweater in the morning. But it's nice. Grass is starting to turn green, and we're not far off of it now. So
I'm jealous. We're already on our 10th grass cutting, I guess, or something like that. The whole spring thing is in full swing. But hey, look, tell everybody real quick, who the heck is Ryan Reynolds? Who are you?
Well, there's a good question. Who is Ryan Reynolds? I'm a waterfowl enthusiast, I guess. I'm an entrepreneur and a father. I'm 35 now, so I've been doing this for 17 years, I guess, the whole guiding game. I've been in it. So, yeah, who am I? That's it in a nutshell. I own my own waterfowl operation, Canada's largest duck and goose call manufacturer. Very fortunate for that. Father first to one little boy who's about to turn 10 actually on Saturday. How 10 years goes by like that, But
y'all don't play baseball up there, do you?
Yeah, we're a big baseball family. He's a big ball player. I'm fortunate enough to be able to coach him with a really good staff, and it's pretty much our passion. He's into that all year round. So if we're not waterfowl hunting, we're usually either in a ball facility or on a diamond somewhere. But not right now, thanks to everything that's going on. But that's our background, really.
Wow. Well, you say you've been guiding for 17 years, half your life nearly. How did that? What's your hunting background? How did that all start?
My hunting background, I grew up in a hunting family. I've got pictures from a very young age hunting with my dad. My dad was definitely my influence into the hunting world. It was just a way of life. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I think I'm going to be a hunter. That looks fun. It was, we were a hunting family. So grew up doing every kind of hunting with dad, rabbit hunting, deer hunting, all that kind of stuff. As I kind of got around the age of, I'd say maybe 11 or so, Dad took me duck hunting, or goose hunting actually, for the first time, just down the road from the house on the neighbor's farm. And there was just something about it, and that was kind of the trigger. And from there, it was a massive escalation of, I need to get myself a goose call. I need to figure out how this is done. I need to figure out how I can get these birds as close to me as possible on a regular basis. And then, as much as I embraced it at the age, like I said, around 11 is kind of where I got hooked. But as I got into 12 and 13 years old and got my hunting license at that age and could go and do it, my old man really helped fuel that fire by, he'd get home from work every day at 4:15, and I would be sitting in the driveway with either the four-wheeler and the trailer loaded up with the goose decoys that we had to go across the road, or his waders and a bag of duck floaters sitting in the driveway as a hint that we need to go down the road to the bay. And he'd get home, take his lunch pail in, change his gear, and he'd take me to whichever one I wanted to go to, the field or the pond, and sit there until it got dark and let me blow the call. And if nothing come in, nothing come in. If something come in, something come in. But he was definitely the one that supported it and allowed me to be in the field to let the passion grow. And, that's where everything really got started for me. But he doesn't complain about it. He never complained about it then, and he never complains about it now, because now he doesn't own a goose decoy or anything. He just tells me or asks me when and where he needs to show up, and he's just like a regular old client. He's got himself a personal guide, so it all panned out for him at the end. But he was
fantastic.
He was definitely the man behind my ability to grow into it like I did, for sure.
Hey, man, it sounds like mostly y'all grew up shooting Canada geese. Is that true?
That is true. That is true. That's all we really had at the time, especially when I started all those years ago. It was a big thing. Like, you shot a limit of Canada geese. I remember being 15 years old shooting, a limit of Canada geese for, myself, the old man, my brother, and a couple of buddies. And, you were getting phone calls from people. Dad was getting phone calls from people wanting to see pictures of, a limit of 25 Canada geese. It was a big thing because people just weren't doing it. And there wasn't that many of them really to be seen in our area. They were very limited to where they were. But that is mainly what we shot growing up, and what we do now too, for the most part. There's certainly lots of other options. We've got a wide array of duck species population, which is incredible. But growing up, I would say the geese were kind of the main target.
That's pretty cool. The South doesn't really have a goose hunting culture like y'all do.
Right.
I've shot Canada geese. My granddad would take a week or two off, hunt the river for them, and stuff like that. But I just don't see. I felt like growing up, I was raised back in the 70s and 80s. But in those days, it really wasn't a goose hunting culture. It was ducks. Right. And it's like, I get up there with y'all, and it's like Canada geese of every proportion. That's just the whole big deal, isn't it?
It definitely is. And I mean, it kind of plays right into it too with the area that we're in. Like I said, there's lots of ducks and varied species, and the duck hunting is great. But it really boils down to the ease, and not to downplay goose hunting, because Canada goose hunting, obviously, there's a lot to it. But when you get here where we are, especially, just the sheer number of Canada geese, as a normal hunter can't drive his daily commute to work without seeing 10,000 geese. I mean, obviously, guys are drawn to it. Land access is tricky. It's all public owned, but it's very doable, and everybody knows somebody that's got permission on the field somewhere. And most fields around here are going to have geese in them at some point in time or another in the season. So it's really easy for guys to be drawn to, which certainly adds to the culture of it for sure.
Well, tell me this, all this pandemic going on right now, and I'm sure everybody listening, even if they're deemed essential and they're at work or working from home or something, everybody's affected by it. But what is, and I'll say this, I've said it before, I'll say it again, every international boundary I've ever stepped across is sealed off right now. But what is going on in Canada? I know that a lot of spring bear hunters, a lot of spring turkey hunters, a lot of spring goose hunters were unable to go to Canada this year. But what is the Canadian response to the COVID-19 pandemic? What's going on with y'all? Are y'all sheltered in place? Are the grocery stores open? Tell me what's going on in Canada right now.
Yeah, that's a good topic, actually. So right now, Canada kind of, you've got one end of the spectrum to the other. Right now, everybody's under state of emergency, lockdown in place. They've dialed it down to the essential workers who are going to work and all that kind of jazz. The vast majority of the country is, self-quarantining, at home under quote-unquote lockdown, and that kind of stuff. Our grocery stores are open. There's a lot of places that are essential service places that are only allowing 5 people in the store at a time. The grocery store in my parents' in my hometown, the entire grocery store, they're only letting 5 people in at a time. There's a lot of stores doing curbside pickup. So you phone your order in, that kind of stuff. We're pretty much locked down now, especially where I am here in Ontario. The bigger populations, you've got Ottawa, Toronto. We're still seeing an increase in cases. The increase has slowed, but things are still increasing. And then, you go to Saskatchewan, which is another province that's very relevant for me. I think they were down to 4 cases and talking about opening up their provincial economy here in the next couple of weeks. So, that's kind of the one end of the spectrum to the other. And really, at the end of the day, it all boils down to who really knows, because every day something changes with it. So
yeah, it's changing day by day, and we don't know. I look at what I was talking to some friends and associates over in Sweden, and in hindsight, 2 months later, it looks like they had the right course. I kind of like that herd immunity response they had. Their mortality is very comparable percent-wise or so to the United States. But nothing shut down economically. They're light years ahead of everybody right now. Their restaurants stayed open, their bars, their stores, their public spaces, and everybody just kind of obeyed the general protocol of distancing and, not putting yourself at unnecessary risk and doing things. And, oh, boy, I kind of wish in hindsight everybody done that.
Yeah, I'd throw my name.
But I don't know.
That's for sure. I would, being in the position that I'm in, and just following everything, I would throw my name in that hat to really summarize how I feel about that.
Well, how have you spent the last 6 weeks or so of quarantine, shelter-in-place type life? I mean, have you been eating a bunch? Have you been what?
No, there's been some great documentaries come out. You mentioned Tiger King at the beginning of it. That one came out at the right time, but we blew
Did you watch it?
So You know what? For about the first 4 days that it was out and it was blowing up on social media, I actually turned to my wife and said, "Nope, I'm not going to fall into that. We're not doing it. It's just one of those things." And then we watched about 10 minutes of the first episode one night sitting here bored, and I don't know that we did anything else until we finished it, unfortunately enough. So, yes, I did watch it. But,
oh, my gosh. I mean, I feel it's like some things you can't take back, you know. It's like if you ever wondered, you know, here's spoiler alert. For anybody that hasn't seen Tiger King, it's like the village people retired and went to work for a carnival. And if you ever wonder what carnies do in the off season, they go to cat farms down in Florida with tigers and lions, and that's it in a nutshell. And my kids turned it on, Ryan, and I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm not watching this mess. And it's like it was a train wreck. I couldn't quit watching. I just ended up just binge watching the whole freaking thing.
Yep, I think that's how everybody was.
It was nuts. It was absolutely nuts.
I couldn't agree more. So to answer your question, yes, I did. I have been watching Tiger King, but that's not the only thing I've been doing. We've been trying to stay busy, trying to stay healthy, trying to stay active. I think we've cleaned every corner of the house, and for the first time ever, I may be seeing a light at the end of the tunnel of the honey-do list, and just focusing on on business, trying to stay relevant, trying to just keep up on everything to make sure that we're set up to be ready to push the go button as soon as they say that we can on the backside of all this. So just staying active and, trying not to just fall into the couch.
Same here. I'm getting things done on the web page I hadn't done in forever that I needed to be doing. Sorting my tool sheds, getting them clean, getting them sorted, literally and figuratively speaking. My house is as clean as a surgical ward. No thanks to my wife. So and I'm ready to get on the road. I love what I do, but I'm enjoying the break. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I'm enjoying not traveling, not hunting for now.
There's always a silver lining in everything, right? Like, I mean, you take right at the beginning, there's 2 weeks after, they announced on, I think it was March 15th, that the border was closed, and that was 14 days to the T that I was supposed to start spring snow goose hunting with my spring snow goose season. I had 4 weeks for spring snow goose booked, so they shut that down 2 weeks beforehand. So, we kind of went from that category of how are we dealing with this, how are we restructuring things, moving guys to next year, keeping people happy, just juggling all that business stuff with, a certain level of panic because it's not something that anybody saw coming or could have planned for, right down to the silver lining of it where this past weekend was opening weekend of turkey season here in Ontario. And I got to spend the first 2 days of the season in the turkey blind with my son, and we were successful both days that he was in the blind. So, to have those experiences and those memories where, if COVID hadn't have been happening, I would have been at my snow goose camp running snow goose hunts and not on those hunts with my son. So
that's right.
There's a silver lining to everything at the end of the day.
Well, I sure hope, and I'm an eternal optimist. I believe things are going to straighten out, but I sure enjoyed coming to hunt with you last year. Forrest and I, of course, Apex Waterfowling is a U.S. Hunt List outfitter, but Forrest and I flew up and hunted with you there in Ottawa Valley, and I've hunted Canada a lot. And I've hunted in Ontario before, but I'd never hunted your part of Ontario, and it was incredible. I mean,
the best kept secret.
It was incredible. I think it truly is. I was posting those Instagram stories of some of those fields, and I got asked by somebody, what, as much as you travel, as much as you hunt, how often do you get to see that? And I'm like, I'm 53 years old. I've never seen what I saw this morning, which was essentially we sacked out, me, you, Forrest, and your buddy sacked out 20 geese, four limits apiece, 4 limits. And before we could grab the birds and take a picture and decoy to try and drive out of the field, 2,500 geese began rallying in flocks of 25 and 50 and 100. And before I knew it, they're all just sitting on the 10 acres in front of us, and that was a sight to see. That was something else.
Yeah, it certainly is. We get stuck in the field like that on a regular basis, and I usually tell people that if an unknowing bystander was witnessing it, they'd swear that we were being attacked and had become overrun by them if it just looked like that from the road, because they do. When that light switch goes off and everything, gets off the water for their morning feed, if you're still there wrapping up and whatnot, you can get sacked in, and that's exactly what we do. We usually sit back and enjoy the show and then run off the big mast with the dog and pretty much turn picking up decoys and getting out of there into a new Olympic sport to see how fast we can do it. So
I love hunting in Canada, and I love hunting in Western Canada too. Now, don't get me wrong, Saskatchewan, Alberta, the Peafield Department. Right. So much of what people, especially people that have never been to Canada, envision Canada being is Western Canada, the rolling hills with the barley and things like that. And Ontario's not that. How would you describe to them the difference in Ontario versus Western Canada?
Yeah, being fortunate to hunt both of them every year, the biggest differences are, the West, again, is just vast, right? For anybody who's been there, understands it. For nobody that has, you can't understand the vast until you've been there. Yeah, miles. You literally can't see any further. Where Ontario here, the terrain has more of a roll to it. We're hunting smaller fields, like a 300-acre cornfield is a big field. Most fields are, 150, 200 acres. Shoot, the hunt that you were just talking about was a grass field that might not have been any more than 7 or 8 acres type deal.
Yeah.
We hunt that. Corn is our big grain here. So, cornfields, bean fields, alfalfa fields early on, tree lines, lots of rock piles in the middle of fields. It's broke up a lot more, really. If you were to take away all the tree lines in the hardwood forests, I'm sure that it would look a lot like the prairies, but we're a lot more broke up here for sure. We don't have the big high hills that, allow you to see for as far as the eye can see. We're much more broke up that way here.
It is, and land ownership is a lot different too. Whereas I think it's changing, I think it's coming to an end, but whereas out in Western Canada you can still kind of hop around, knock on some doors. Ontario, not. But Ontario, when I think of Western Canada, I think of barley and peas, and unfortunately too much canola. And when I think of Ontario, I think of sod farms, dairies, and a lot of cornfields to support the dairies. And that just and it's real fractionalized ownership. Like a lot of the fields, I think fortunately I hunted for 3 days. We hunted a sod farm one day, we hunted cornfields the other, and probably the biggest field we hunted was a quarter section, 160 acres. That was the first morning.
Biggest. Yep.
And then the rest of them were just smaller, and that's what was so astounding. In the dark, when you're putting out decoys, you can imagine it being a 1,000-acre field. But then when it gets light, you realize, holy cow, this field's 10 acres. I'm in a little 10-acre square, and it's surrounded by trees, and that's crazy.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And there wasn't a lot of, whereas you go to Western Canada, you're shooting what I call big littles and mediums. In terms of Canada geese, and over there it was just big to medium. It was just one goose. It was that interior population of geese.
Exactly, that standard cookie cutter migratory Canada goose. That's exactly it. Some are bigger than others, some are smaller than others, but at the end of the day, it's just that cookie cutter migrator.
Yeah, and there's another distinction. Speaking of migration, there's another big distinction. When you go to Saskatchewan or Alberta or somewhere like that, you're hunting to an extent. Some of the birds, especially the big canads, are local birds. They nest there, and so early in the season, especially, some of those birds, ducks and geese, are locals. But then come the Arctic migrators. Now, this time of year in Ontario, y'all don't really have any Canada geese, do you?
Yeah, not to speak of. I mean, you've got your golf course geese and your park geese in the city, but on a scale, it probably wouldn't even register on our goose population from, let's call it, what we hold in the summer to what's here during the migration. For sure, everything just passes through. If you were to drive through here any time of the year other like outside of the fall migration and obviously the trip back home in spring for them, you'd swear she was a barren ground. You'd ask every question you could think of how we actually have geese here. We don't hold them. They are tundra birds for sure.
Up there in the Arctic tundra, and they come down to your area. You were explaining to me this fall there's something geographically that attracts those birds, like the way the rivers fork or the way the rivers come together, and you got this big fertile corn valley right in between them.
That's exactly it. If you were to look at a topographical map from where these birds start to where they hit here in Ontario, it's an hourglass. Really, they all come down off of that tundra and they funnel through to eastern Ontario. It's the Corn Belt. It's the agriculture land. It's the vast dairies. It basically bottlenecks them all right here. For a lot of those birds, we're the first stop. So they all sit here. They all jump here. They hang here until they essentially get froze out. And then more or less, once they cross that border at upstate New York and make it to the Finger Lakes, let's call it, then basically hourglasses back out, and that's where, they'll fan out and, kind of, they're not nearly as condensed as they are here. It's the same flylands, the same birds, but that hourglass opens back up kind of once you get into upstate New York, and, these birds will cover Maryland, Virginia,
Delaware, Virginia, that whole Delmarva area. Yep, Delmarva, Chesapeake Bay, New York, Pennsylvania. Right.
Yep.
That's very interesting. And what would you say to anybody listening that what's like you were telling me one time? I know geese is the big deal, Canada geese, and I know you've got a lot of mallards. But how does the migrational timing, ducks and geese all come into play in that part of the world? Yeah.
So again, I mean, the goose migration is easier to see just because we have so many of them, and the cornfields are everywhere. So I mean, they're just a little bit more visible when the migration shows up. We have phenomenal duck hunting. And, our early season, we have a big population of mallards and teal and wood ducks. We shoot a pile of widgeon we have around here. And then kind of as the migration starts to go on, we have, for the guys that like to chase a different species, golden eyes, we have lesser scaup, we have greater scaup, redheads, old squaw. We shoot a lot of old squaw offshore, which I don't know too many other places that you can do something like that. We shoot old squaws offshore. So, I mean, if somebody gets a hold of me and says, listen, this is what I'm looking to achieve, I'm pretty much going to give them a time of year where that's the best time to target the species. Because when you really get into where a lot of our backwater starts freezing up, then that's where our duck migration becomes a little more evident. They end up with less places to hide, and it kind of congregates them, right? Because we are on the St. Lawrence River, which is one of the last places to freeze. We are on top of Lake Ontario, which really I can count on one hand how many times it's froze since I was in grade school. So I mean, we hold all of those birds, and as everything else freezes up, it puts that concentration of all of our ducks on there. By mid-November, we're into pretty much whatever species of ducks a guy wants to go and chase, and everything's a mixed bag on those hunts for that matter.
Man, that's crazy. So I know, like, I've been up there to hunt with you, and the fourth night I came up there third week of October.
Yes.
It was Canada's. And I know
Canada's.
Mid to late November, the Canada geese are going to start beating it back down, but down further south, the ducks are going to start showing up. Is that kind of a time? And how long did y'all season run there?
So our honker season usually goes to sometime right around the end of December, anywhere from the 28th to 30th usually is when our honker season goes out. And our duck season goes until this year I went to January 11th. It's usually either January 9th or January 11th. It just depends on where that Saturday happens to fall in September and January where it closes and opens. So, but it's right around that ballpark, depending on the calendar. And the honkers usually start to roll out in the mass numbers by end of November. You know, we hunt them right up until closing day, but instead of seeing, 20,000 of them type deal in a field, you're going to see 5,000-6,000 of them in a field because our big water still holds, for most people, it holds the most Canada geese that they're ever going to see. But for us, it's, just smaller numbers, so to speak, without sounding egotistical on it. That's just the facts of it. But by mid-November is usually when our combo hunts will start to overlap. By mid-November, when things start cooling off and the backwater starts freezing and, the rest of that northern migration starts pushing through, that's when we end up with the combo hunts in the field with the mallards in the cornfields. And that's when, all the other late ducks are in and we can go set up on the water and shoot duck limits. And that the last 2 weeks of November is where those kind of overlap. And then December is usually where we get into, more specific duck hunts. They're just more reliable from an outfitter end of things. They're just more reliable for your concentrated duck hunts the last half of November and December into January. So I'm a big believer, and I don't like making promises that I can't keep. So if somebody wants to go duck hunting for whatever species, I usually push them into the later part of the season just for better opportunities. But yeah, it's usually mid-November that we start to see everything kind of mixed together.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me that y'all's season ends 11th, 12th of January, and Mississippi season, which is all the way across.
Yeah,
if you fly way down to the bottom, ends just 20 days later.
It's crazy. Isn't it? Yeah, we used to close on December 20th. Forever growing up, duck season was December 20th, and then I'm trying to think. I don't know. Actually, if I gave a year that they switched it, I'd probably end up being a liar because I'd be guessing at it now that I get started. But it's been quite a few years that we've been able to go into January to shoot ducks, which is, hey, I'll take it.
Well, y'all are probably, y'all are probably 200 to 230 miles from Kingsville, Ontario, which is where Jack Miner is. How many Jack Miner bands do y'all recover?
Not
there
a one.
In Ottawa Valley.
Not a one. I haven't spent, for as long as I've been guiding full time, which I could say I started full time, I guess, at 19. I have not spent any less than 100 days in the field each fall, and I have never seen a minor band harvested in this area. They just do not come this way. I've seen minor bands, but I've never seen one recovered.
Yeah, and I guess that's because they're different birds. They're different Canada geese.
Very, very different Canada geese. They come off the tundra, and I guess if they're looking down at the States, they go right, and everything we get goes left. And their migration, from what I understand, is actually a much shorter distance, too, for them.
Those are the James Bay birds. Is that pretty much what they are?
They are. They would be in what they would consider to be the James Bay population, yes.
That's crazy. Canada geese have, I had this conversation the other day. Somebody had asked me how many species I'd killed, and I said, well, it depends on how you count them.
Right.
And there is how far down the food chain do you speciate? In general terms, when you think of Canadas, you've got the bigs and the littles, the cacklers and the Canada geese proper. And within those two forks, you've got basically 11 subspecies recognized. And,
exactly.
And I count just two of them right now. Although I know, like Taverners, Aleutians, the westerns, the interiors, the Richardsons. Some of them are just real easy to spot out. I mean, you got them in hand, especially because of where you're hunting, especially, you know what you've got. But then, at some point level, you about have to break out the calipers and get down into the systematics of these species on how these people have them categorized for me to understand anyway. It's not very obvious like speckled belly versus Canada goose versus snow goose. When you start getting into the subspecies of sky pandas, it gets real different, it blows my mind how just that little bit of difference on a map. I could drive that in 3 hours if the popo wasn't pulling me over for laying the hammer back. But I mean, it's just that little bit of difference. I've got this big goose, James Bay population that comes down through, clips the southeast corner of Ontario, and sometimes will range as far south as Ohio and stuff like that. But then just a little bit to the east, I've got an entire separate population that's also in the Arctic, but not the James Bay, that's coming down through the Ottawa Valley and spinning around up to the Atlantic coast. That just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, and when you say it's mind-boggling, but then when you really look at it on a map, and at the end of the day, the difference in distance that these birds travel from one flyway to another, and then it all boils back to the point that you made. Like, sure, they're subspecies, but they're all the same at the end of the day, and it's just, the different way that they're ingrained to, they don't travel as far, they act differently. They're so close to the point where they leave the nesting grounds together, but they just go a different way, and they're just geared differently to where they migrate on a totally different principle. It's pretty awesome, really. I mean, to really boil it down like that, because it's
I had a great podcast conversation with Corey Loeffler back this fall. I was passing through Minnesota, hunting with him, and he was talking about the molt migrators. That's a big deal for Canada goose hunters up north. And we got to talking about, the giant Canada, which is the great big one. Even down here in the deep south, those are giant Canadas. They're resident birds. And as I understand it, at one time, the giant Canada was thought to be extinct as recently as the late 50s, early 60s. Right. And somebody found them and figured out that these birds were coming from Manitoba to a certain place in Minnesota. And that was it. That was their migration quarter, Manitoba to Minnesota. Well, it gets doggone cold in Minnesota in the wintertime, even today.
Yeah, it sure is. I think the Rochester area.
Rochester, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so, and it's my understanding, it's like, say there were 90 some odd pairs of those geese. They took them and they began to build up the population, and so now effectively North Dakota, Minnesota, clear on over to the resident birds, I'm sure in Ontario, New York, on down to Ohio, further on down, because Mississippi brought in truckloads of them. Got that same genetic material, and they, and you got to wonder if a bird that historically, if a genetic species that historically migrated from Interlake, Manitoba to Rochester, Minnesota, if they just for eons had migrated no further south than Minnesota, no wonder when you put them in Mississippi or put them here, put them anywhere you put them, they don't migrate.
Exactly.
But I have got to find, and I'm hunting hard. I talked to a couple, got a few names jotted down. I've got to find a bona fide world expert of Canada geese. I want to have this conversation, because I know my grandfather, some of the very few hunting documents I've got of his was his, quote, goose camp, unquote, which was just a loose collection of friends that would get in a boat, launch on an oxbow in Greenville, Mississippi, go downriver a few miles, dig into a sandbar for a couple of weeks back in the 40s and 50s, and they hunted Canada geese, migrators, Canada geese. Well, by the 70s, he were driving up to Cairo, Illinois to shoot migrator Canadas. And now you talk to a lot of boys in Ballard County, Kentucky, and, western Tennessee and Illinois, they don't get the migrator canids anymore. I just think it's a fascinating topic how these different little cohorts of Canada geese, how their migration is so different. To myself, I wonder, is their migration learned, or is there some kind of genetic factor? I wonder. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I wonder.
I couldn't agree with you more. I would love to. I'd love to be a fly on the wall and just sit there and listen to somebody that knew something about that to talk about it, because it would be incredibly interesting. That's for sure.
How big are those? How big would you say the Canada geese y'all shoot are? Because I don't. They're not as big as some of the great big giant sky pandas I put my hands on. I mean, am I right in saying that those interior geese, Forrest and I shot with you, are 8 to 10 pounds on average? Is that about right?
Yeah, I think 10 pounds would probably be on the upside. Yeah, I think you're probably closer in that ballpark of like that 8 pounds, like 6 to 8 type feel. Yeah, kind of, again, run-of-the-mill type deal. But, yeah, I'd say 6 to 8 would probably be a pretty good average. You're going to kill a 10-pounder for sure.
They're big Canadas, but they're big Canadas. If we were bringing them in, but when I first put my hand on them, they look like a big Canada when their paddles down are coming in. But if you put your hands on them, they're not the giants. They're not just giants.
No, they're not your giants. They're not going to be those ones that, if you're used to hunting. Again, let's compare Ontario to the prairies. You go to Saskatchewan, and the first 6 geese that come off in the morning are those giants that don't get any farther than 10 feet off the ground, coming across the field, screaming at you. They're not those birds. They're not those giants that you're relating to. They're not as small either. They're twice the size of of a lesser, let's call it, right? The guys are so typically used to shooting on the western side of things, Canada and the States. They're a big bird, but yeah, they're not a giant. That's for sure. But yeah, to answer your question, I would say probably 6, 7, 8 pounds would be an average for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
They're fun.
Another thing, Forrest and I talked about hunting up there with you. I've been to a lot of camps around, but I really enjoyed. You've got a great little setup there for lodging. Very comfortable, very nice. It's kind of in the city or in the suburb. It was just perfect. You can just walk or drive just a little bit down. You got this real thriving. I saw a lot of coffee shops, a lot of bars, a lot of cool things to do. But remind me of your cook's name. What was your cook's name? The chef? Andrew
Rochon was is his name, and he's a wizard. He's my main man. That one is. Yeah. I don't like bragging about a lot of my business. I don't feel I need to, because a lot of it speaks for itself. I'm very proud of the way that we've built this and what we've got in place. I have great confidence in it. But the one part that I don't usually pass up the opportunity to actually brag about is the food. And that stems right back to him, which I'm sure you can probably relate to at this point after being with us for a couple of days.
No, what struck me, is unique. And I'd say as compared to a lot of North American hunting operations or Western Canada versus Ontario, I would throw this up there. One observation I made while there was the food was just freaking unbelievable. He didn't just throw something together. He would cook all day. You come in at lunch and eat a great lunch, but then he'd already started on dinner. Mm-hmm. And but what struck me is one of the last morning, Forrest and I joined some men from New York, and they had driven up and they had brought their spouses. And their spouses didn't hunt, but the accommodations were very nice. The food was very good, and then they could go out after the hunt. And I don't remember where they went. They had told us look at go to museums and look at some different stuff, and just so it really. We have a lot of guys ask us, Mazatlan, Mexico, a huge hunt for us. Netherlands is a huge hunt for guys that travel with non-hunting spouses. And anytime, look, hey, y'all, hint, anybody listening, you want to go on a hunting vacation? get your wife on board as a vacation.
Yo,
You get her on. That's a shoe in. It's one thing if you're going to go hunting and spend some money. It's something else entirely different if you present it as a us vacation.
Well, it takes it from being from being a potential one and done trip for yourself to well, now you've got an open door for a conversation for some additional years after the first one, and that's something that if you don't mind, Ramsey, I'd actually jump in and touch on, because where we are in Ontario, I mean, Ontario is huge. Again, we've talked that we can be a 4-hour difference between two totally different migration paths. So, I mean, Ontario is that big, where it has multiple migration paths of Canada's go through it. But we're right in the Ottawa, like you mentioned as well, in the Ottawa Valley. And the lodge that we've got is a 20-minute drive, maybe at best, to our Parliament Hill, right to our nation's capital. And there's everything from markets to museums, like you mentioned, everything like that. So we have guys that bring their wives, and for that matter, bring their families. And we're home by 9-10 o'clock in the morning. Andrew's got the breakfast ready. Everybody crushes it, and then they go have a family trip the rest of the day and come back for dinner time. And they've seen the Parliament buildings, they've seen the markets, they've seen the museum, different museums, and it's definitely, you can multitask on it for sure with family and spouses and all that kind of fun stuff for sure. It's a pretty cool area. There's a lot to, you go 10 minutes one way and you're into the heart of probably the best kept secret of Canada goose migration. You go 10 minutes the other direction and, you're into the nation's capital. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, and I would throw that up on everybody's radar. It's just a really unique place to hunt and experience Canada and experience real good migrator Canada goose hunting. But y'all have it's got to be a huge market. A huge part of your market has got to be northeastern United States, Atlantic flyway folks, where I think Canada goose limit got cut back to 1 this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that got cut back to 1 or, down to 2 even and that kind of stuff. They really did. Yeah, I mean, you take right from Maine, Connecticut, all the way to Virginia and New Jersey. I mean, all of that is within a 10-hour drive to the lodge's front door. So, I mean, 4 guys jump in the truck. It's easy. It's easy to get to. It's not you're not commuting through a couple different airports and that kind of jazz. A lot of the guys that come to visit us on a regular basis, and a lot of the new guys that we're picking up since the limits did change in that part of the States, are within that 10-hour bubble. I mean, you got guys that come from even Illinois. It's a doable drive. We've got guys that come every year religiously from Illinois, for that matter too. So it's easy to get to.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure this sooner or later, from just watching TV and everything else, I know we our world are going to work through this coronavirus deal and move on with our lives. And it's not going to stop the birds from migrating. They don't know nothing's going on. They're coming on down, I guarantee you. But tell me this: how has COVID-19 has it affected your business? Has it affected anything in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, it definitely has. I mean, I'd be lying through my teeth if I said no. I mean, it's affected everybody. I really don't think it hasn't, but yes, it has. I mean, again, I mentioned it earlier, just briefly there. I lost my entire spring snow goose season. We were booked for a month of spring snows and not able to operate. So between the loss of revenue that happened this spring from the other half that was coming in, we were booked an entire month of deposits in, rolled those all to next year. So between the loss of this spring and, already looking into next spring, that's the most blatant one. The few spots that we have on the calendar for the fall, they're still technically sitting there because the lineup of guys that, you know, were interested and we were having conversations with before COVID kicked in, everybody just hit the pause button to see what it looks like afterwards.
Right.
I don't have any worry that as soon as they cut us loose, I mean, everybody's going to be more desperate than ever to get out of the house and go do something and blow off some steam and have some fun. So I don't have any worry about them filling. But, yeah, I mean, you know, usually right now I'd be sitting on, you know, sorry, we're booked, or, you know, here's specific dates that we've got left and these are the last pickings. But everything's just kind of on pause, which is understandable. So it's a different year that way, and it certainly has affected things there. But still lots of good conversations, still getting inquiries. It's just everybody asks the questions that they want. They ask to be put on the list and then to be contacted again after COVID's done, which, you know, hey, I can relate to that.
Yeah, no, I can certainly relate to it. Economically and emotionally, COVID is a big pause button. It's affected, it's touched every single person I know on earth. And
yep,
myself, not the least of which is myself. You know, we've deferred all of our hunters until, I'm certain, it'll be all of our Argentina, Peru, New Zealand, Australia will be deferred until 2021. That's fine. But, you know, what surprised me, March, was crickets. And it normally is pretty quiet. But it was crickets with everybody watching the TV and hearing about the sky falling. But April has not been crickets. It's been a very encouraging that people are calling and making plans for the fall here in the U.S. and making plans for spring, January, February down in Mexico and Argentina 2021. I have been extremely encouraged the last couple of weeks. But what I do see too is, you know, normally I know from working with you several years now in Ontario that you know, you're running these hunts essentially from mid to late October through mid-January, and you're pretty busy. And so there may be some opportunity. Disproportionately, there's going to be people that sit on the sidelines this fall. But it looks to me like there's some opportunity too.
Without a doubt, there's definitely going to be an opportunity. And, you know, with opportunity comes savings, right? I mean, there's going to be guys on the business side of things. You know, I understand that there's going to be guys that are booked right now to come that, let's say, if the borders open up in July, you know, their financial situation is going to have changed. They're going to drop off, you know, especially those guys that I was seeing in the last 3 to 4 years that were, with no disrespect to them, but not your typical quote unquote client from what a outfitters used to seeing, you know, those 30 to 40-year-old guys. We were seeing a lot of because the economy was so great and everybody had spare money in their pockets, so they're spending it. I think we might see a swing where, you know, those guys aren't able to because they've got young kids and they got to take care of family first. So, you know, I think we could end up seeing a drop off and there'd be an opportunity on, you know, cancellation hunts right to, you know, a new open spot on the calendar that gives somebody a chance to get into what would generally be a prime date that's been tricky to get their hands on because they were already full. So yeah, there's definitely going to be an opportunity coming out of this. Yeah, you know, from a customer side of things, from a hunter side of things, definitely going to be an opportunity for it. And from the outfitter side of things, you know, I'm going to be grateful to be around to still be one of the ones to be able to supply those opportunities to the people that'll be looking for them. Because you're right, there's been a lot of inquiries. We've seen it here. You know, I have to where I wasn't expecting the phone to ring at all. And there's still guys asking questions because something's going to end sooner or later, and guys want to be prepared as well as take advantage of those deals or those specials that, you know, guys like myself are going to have to offer.
Yeah, and you know, it's just, well, I tell you what, these times of uncertainty with market and work and this is unprecedented, man. Just everybody having to stay at home and all these different industries just shut down right now.
Yeah,
it's different. Yeah. You know, it's just different, but it's going to get better. And I just know I'm not in my 30s anymore, but I remember being in that stage of life when my wagon was absolutely loaded, man. home mortgage and minivan payments and kids, and it just phases and stages of life too. But there's always light at the end of the tunnel, man. I mean, I'm encouraged also by the fact that despite everything that's going on in the world right now, that as an indicator of financial health, of the economic optimism and everything else going on in the universe, is, man, the Dow Jones is 30% higher than it ever was during Obama's administration. That in and of itself tells me that if and when, as this merry-go-round, so to speak, starts to spin around again, it's going to pick up some speed again, and everybody's going to be back normal. You know what I'm saying? I'm encouraged by it.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree entirely without a doubt. Well, I feel like as our generation and just the way we live lives, the way that everything's gone from phones in our pockets to nobody having landlines to we like to do things as a population now. So once we're allowed to do things, I feel like everybody's going to jump right back out there.
I agree. And I bet you everybody listening, nodding their head right now, thinking, "Heck yeah, I'm getting back out there and killing something."
Yeah,
I guarantee it. Just like us, Ryan. I guarantee they are. Now look, speaking of coming up to Ontario in the future, God willing, and the creek don't rise, Forrest and I are coming back this year, and Brandon Saricki and his young son. And Brandon and I got to talking. In fact, I was on my way to see you last time, and we got to talking. Brandon is just building ball shot shells. He's got a very successful other business, the third generation, and he's that guy in his 30s. Work. He's got young children. And he and I just got to talking and about how, my son is 22 years old. My oldest son is 22. Duncan is 20. And Brandon's son is 9 or 10 years old.
Right.
Same
age as my little guy. Yep.
And he's kind of in the same place, working all the time that I was when Forrest was about that age. And I just had this idea. I said, Brandon, we ought to go up here. Because he saw all these geese we were shooting up here and with you. And he was hitting me up. And I said, yeah, Brandon, what we ought to do is we ought to do a father-son hunt. Fathers and sons. Me and you.
Right. Yep.
Your son at that age. My son that used to be that age is now much older. And I think it'd be a nice story. And we wrote Jake Latondra into it. He's going to come up and film a live short Get Ducks episode. But since you and I have had this conversation, I would propose you, our guide, bring your dad, and that it be you and your dad, me and my son, Brandon and his son, and we just do a. I think that'd be a wonderful opportunity, fathers and sons, to get together and about what this thing is really about. I mean, I like to ask that question. I love to hear about who influences, because it's mostly, not always, but mostly it's family.
Mostly, I would agree.
And if you are that guy that's still working, and even though Forrest is older, I mean, my kid's 22 years old, but now he's coming into adulthood, starting a business, getting things going, and our times together are fewer and far between. But talk about some quality time. It's right there in the duck blind. It is. Every minute you get in a duck blind is like, you can say it's like dog years. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a lot different than sitting in front of a TV or sitting in a truck or doing something else. Man, I'm in a duck blind sharing quality time with quality people, and it makes a difference. And I think that'd be a great opportunity to get your dad and bring him into the mix now.
I think that'd be a great story, and I'm never going to turn down the opportunity to get in the blind with the old man. That's for sure. Especially with a couple other guys that can relate when everybody's in the blind. That can relate on that exact moment that's happening. I mean, that's even more special. I think we can make that happen.
Well, speaking of Brandon Saricki over at Ball Shot Shells, I want to end on this note. I want to ask you this question: Are you in any way affiliated whatsoever with Ball Shot Shells?
Not at all, no, sir.
Had you ever shot them or seen them or been around them until Forrest and I showed up?
I had not. I had seen them, obviously. I mean, social media. I mean, Boss is blown up. They're everywhere on social media. So I had seen them, But put one in the hand or put one in a gun or see what it does to a bird, I had not before sharing the blind with you and Forrest on that trip. No, I had not.
Well, you've been goose guiding half your life and been hunting most of it, same as me. And I grew up. I'm 53 years old. I grew up back in the lead days. And I was telling somebody the other day, through high school into college, my dad, my granddad, myself, nobody, my uncle, nobody in our family had a gun that chambered 3-inch rounds.
Right.
Nobody. We all shot 2 3/4 inch lead because it was legal back in 90. In 90, they started phasing it in 91. Steel shot was mandatory, and we learned real quick there's no shooting steel shot out of those guns with fixed chokes. It'll bulge a barrel, it'll mess them up. That non-conform steel shot, and then became the whole new era of non-toxic waterfowl shot, which instead of shooting 1,300 feet or some odd feet per second, shooting lead 4s, 5s, 6s downrange, we had to, because steel was so much lighter, had to start ramping it up. Had to get to speed. Now we've got an entire generations plural of hunters out here that believe you've got to have a 3.5-inch shell. You've got to have a 3-inch shell. You got to have a 3.5-inch shell shooting 1,800 feet per second. The answer is no. I'm saying for me, it has been a real big swing back to the true good old days, except it's not toxic like lead. It's non-toxic. That copper plate they did, and I have been fortunate enough to shoot ball shot shells in. I shoot it here, but taking it places that they still shoot lead, taking it to Argentina, taking it to Azerbaijan, taking it to Mexico, and hearing, without saying anything, hearing the guide's response, or hearing, seeing in kind of a blind test of sorts their critique, their observation, and they see a difference. And I'm just, because, and that's coming from people that see a lot of birds die because of their business. You're a professional guide. What is your opinion? Forrest and I showed up with, because we were shooting geese for shits and giggles, we showed up with 3-inch, 1.5 ounce, copper-plated Boss 3s. What was your opinion? That's the first time you'd seen that. What was your opinion? Somebody that sees a lot of birds get killed coming into decoys.
It was, it's pretty easy to explain that one. You spend enough days in the field with guys, and they're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, or the difference between knocking them down is hitting them and messing them. But with the typical steel shot that everybody sees and everybody uses, you hear guys after a volley and a group of 4 guys only killed 2. I hit the same bird 3 times. I saw feathers. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure. You hit them, didn't hit them good enough. You hit them back. Blah 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 blah. Well, that boss stuff. The difference in it is, if you hit it, it's on the ground. If it is not on the ground, you did not hit it. There's not much of an in between. If any of that pattern hit that bird, it was done. It's on the ground. So there's no gray area whatsoever. Oh, I hit that one back and it's, across the field, or I watched the fly away as far as possible and I can't see it anymore. No, that bird is not going like that. It's either you hit them or you missed them. There's really no gray area. And that was the first, the first way I felt about it. And by the end of the 3 days, there's no question about it. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
That's that bird. That stuff was bringing it down. That's all there is to it. It hit like a freight train.
The one shot I remember, we were shooting decoying birds. I mean, you're a Canada goose purist, and like a lot of Canada goose purists, it's shooting decoying birds. And I love to shoot them because it's just clean killed. Boom, boom, boom. They're right there in the decoy. But you remember we were, you had your 5, Forrest had his 5. We were waiting on that last bird. And
our first morning.
I think it was 8 o'clock in the morning. It was still early. They'd been flying for 30 minutes, and you shot yours, Forrest shot his, and I was waiting on that 5th bird, and that flock came over, and for whatever reason, the wind had shifted. They were 40 yards, and I passed you. When you hunt different places in the world, if I'll shoot them decoying, I'll shoot them this, but if they're killable, kill them. I pass you. But my point being is, I remember you saying, "Can you take him with that load?"
Yep.
And I picked the lead bird and just pulled the trigger, and it looked like Thor's hammer had hit that bird.
I think I know exactly what bird you're talking about. I'm positive it was on our first morning that we hunted, and I would even bet to say that I'm very confident I have the video on my phone that I could post and tag you in after we get off the phone here. I'm positive I have that bird on video actually.
I mostly shoot a lot because I shoot a lot of duck. I mostly shoot their little 2 3/4 inch fives. I love them. It's just like the load I grew up shooting back in the 70s, back in the good old days. But I was woefully. I mean, it just blew my mind the way that bird just in that instant clapped his wings and just fell. Just
and
dead
the
as
big
a whale.
thing is you don't leave the field. I mean, not only does it hit like we're talking, but you don't leave the field feeling like you've had the snot beat out of you by pulling the trigger on 3.5 inch stuff. Anyways, that you're making up excuses for at the end of the day. So,
well, we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back this year, and for sure we're gonna come and film an episode, Fathers and Sons. Your dad, me and Brandon with our kids, and we're gonna have a fun time out there. I know we are. But real quick, Ryan, how can anybody listening connect with you in social media?
Social media, there is Instagram. I would say probably the best way. We have an Instagram and Facebook page. Facebook is Apex Waterfowling. Instagram is at @Apex_waterfowling. There's the website, www.apexwaterfowling.ca. My phone number is attached to pretty much every one of those, I believe. So I enjoy conversations much like this, so I can be reached through there or my personal Instagram page at Ryan_waterfowl. Pretty easy to find and happy to be found by anybody that's got questions about anything from what we offer right down to casual waterfowl conversation.
Sure. Guys, thank y'all for listening. You've been listening to Ryan Reynolds, Apex Waterfowling. You can also find information on the USHuntList.com. Again, thank y'all for listening. If you've got any suggestions, future episodes, or anything whatsoever, hit us up in social media at Ramsey Russell Get Ducks. See you next time.
Duck Season Somewhere is produced by Ben Page. Original soundtrack by our friend Cody Huggins.